good morning, or whatever time this finds you. Today I wanted to talk about the unique experience of personal ascension and how there's a lot of phases to it, and it's a lot with individuals. They want to get to the finish line as quick as possible. Like they want to rush through the steps of getting from point A to point B, and for good reason. And largely, I think it's because there's so much darkness we have to trudge through in order to get to what you think is the finish line. Spoiler, whenever you think you've reached it, I have now ascended. There's like a new ceiling to get through, and another one. It's not going to end. There's always more growth beyond what you think. I've grown. There's more. So we're never really done when we're embodied in the physical. But I would say there's this big internalized pressure that people feel to drive and do the work and get it done, and that it's I want to caution one about that mentality, largely because that mentality is based around the idea of work and toiling and suffering, and that those vibrations, those feelings attached to something are very old paradigm concepts that limit us in our capacity to go into the childlike wonder and joy and unconditional love frequency that is part of what people are actually seeking, which is a fifth dimensional existence and above. And because of that, like marrying those two concepts that are not supposed to go together, of like, I want to ascend, but I'm gonna work hard to do it. That's a mentality we've been really trained. We've been trained since yay big to like work hard and succeed and meet your goals. And I don't want to discount that as being valuable in its own way, because every aspect of what we're exploring about ourselves is valuable. Even if it's darkness, even if it's what you deem as a mistake. I don't believe that there are mistakes. There's opportunities to gain new knowledge or regain that knowledge if you've forgotten, and then make new decisions based off of that. And we can make that same decision over and over and over again until we've really, really learned the thing we need to learn. And that's not a mistake. That's applying information quickly or slowly to your reality and integrating it into this like person you're becoming, and it's all beautiful. My patients hate it when I say this stuff. They're like, come on, I made a mistake. I'm like, did you make a mistake? I don't think you did. You needed to learn more about yourself. And they're like, Audrey, just say I'm wrong and I did a bad thing. I'm like, I can't do that. I love you. Yeah, you should ask some of my people what it's like to be on this couch. It's funny because I just sit cross-legged in my chair and I'm like, you're fine. But that idea of if I go this way or that way and what's gonna be the right thing, and then also like I must work hard and I have to meditate for like 60 minutes a day at least, and then I'm going to do yoga and I'm gonna join a group where we are doing blank, and just like going head in, it's attaching to that toiling mentality that I'm not really into. I have to say, and part of, I think my generation, I'm the younger side of Gen X. I think Gen X cutoff was 81. I could be totally wrong. Could be 81. I was born before that. And that whole era is known. Like, if you look at, I try not to get sucked into TikTok, but because I'm trying to have an online presence of some kind and going against like every grain of my nature to do so, I kind of want to see what exists. And so I see these trends of like Gen X stuff where everyone's like, don't mess with Gen X, they're wild animals, they raise themselves, kind of thing. What was funny about that is that I kind of like, I had a helicopter parent. And so my experience is just a little bit different. But still, like, there was a point where I didn't want help and didn't ask for help, and I just was like a wild animal in apartments and partying and all that stuff. And so I really relate to a lot of that. But part of that, like, wild animal Gen X mentality is to work your ass off. And there was a time where I was waiting tables at Old Chicago, and I would work till like 2 till it closed, and then I'd get to the Gap before it opened at like 7:30 to refold the jeans, because even though they were folded at night, you needed to refold them and fluff them in the morning so it looked like a brand new store every day. That was the whole thing. And I was in charge. I was like, I don't know, I think they just gave me a title with no raise to make me feel good. But they made me, I forget the name, it's in a journal somewhere. They made me in charge of the window displays where you put the clothing on the mannequins and you get to choose what clothing goes on them, etc. But so it was a big deal. But I would work like to close the bar and then come and open the Gap and then go. I would have my clothes in my car and I'd switch my clothes and I'd get like $1 chicken sandwich at Jack in the Box to eat in between. And I was just like, I didn't even have heat in my apartment. I was heating it with an open oven. Like, it was those were some times, man. But that idea of toiling is very much like was ingrained in me ancestrally. My dad was raised by potato farmers, and so like and they were impoverished and they worked so hard. My dad worked at an orchard picking fruit with immigrants when he was like 7 years old to buy his school clothes. Like, that's what I come from. And so with that mentality of everything's hard and we have to work hard, like that, there's a pride in it that is passed down of like, you gotta work hard, it's gonna be okay. And then there's this pride my dad had in his face when I'd be exhausted from working so hard. It's like, yeah, that's what it's like. Like, yeah, is that right though? So, but if you're trying to achieve like enlightenment, you can't apply those old concepts to enlightenment. You can't do it, or you'll end up in that drudgery vibration of oppression and internalized slavery and never being able to achieve and always waiting just a little bit longer to get a little bit more. And that it's going to be a hard road and it's going to suck and it's going to be very much Sisyphus in the rock and rolling it up and then it tumbles down on you. Like, that's not the way to do it. If you're going toward enlightenment, just enjoy it. Like, every little glimpse you get of a thing that is new or exciting, like, savor it. Like, I'm probably saying like too much, but I don't judge that. I'm gonna just give myself some grace this morning because I just had a weekend. I have to say, even just like the moment you go into a dark thought or a judgment about yourself and you release it, you're a step closer, man. And that's amazing, to just not judge yourself. That's not like Buddha on a freaking mountaintop, but that's a step closer than where you were. I have to tell you, like, I've been on this journey for a really long time, and a good part of this journey was me trying to assist others, therefore having to assist and apply those things to myself in order to master them, to teach them. And just as a counselor doing that, one of the biggest things I found to be the case in right out of grad school, when I was learning about how going into states of gratitude would reduce pain, physical pain. There were some journal studies on it, and it was around like mindfulness-based stress reduction and John Kabat-Zinn and applying that to healthcare, because I was working with hospice. And just trying to learn about that in order to help other people made me apply it to my own life. I was practicing gratitude. I was writing in my journal, reflecting on the things that were beautiful that had happened that day. And I was really making a pointed effort to understand those things so I could teach them to other people, therefore ingraining them and anchoring them in my own life. And I remember there was a day where I, the monkey mind is real. It's a hard thing to overcome, obviously, or everybody would be happy. But the grind thinking of, well, you got to do this and this and this and this, and you're so blank, insert insult here. Or like going back to old wounds and being like, remember when you were in 5th grade and that happened? That was awful. It was sad. That's why your life is so screwed up right now. Damn that person. Like doing that kind of monkey mind out of nowhere where you just feel like attacked with thoughts, that is real. And so anytime you get a moment where you are not imprisoned by that and you have the capacity to flip it in another direction, you're overcoming something, and that's amazing. And you're on your road and mastering those just singular concepts that you can learn just in therapy or in self-help books. Even if you're not engaging in spirituality, those are foundational to be able to apply spiritual concepts and build. But every bit of it is a joy, and for how much my brain has tortured me in my life, to even have a moment where I felt I was in control of the peace I was accessing is a joy beyond joys, So why spend your time like reaching for something you're so far away from right now? Like just having a solid 5 minutes of silence and meditation just to breathe and not do anything beyond that is practically mastery for some people. Where others, they are like, well, if I can't meditate for a solid 60 minutes in the lotus position, I'm never going to be enlightened. That itself is a toiling mindset. And you're not going to reach unconditional love. Like, I would say the biggest thing you can do on your spiritual journey is to play. Just be playful. And I was never really playful as a child. So when I'm told to play, I don't even know what that means, or I didn't. And now, to me, the most pure version of that, of play, is to disregard time. So if you have blank space, so you just can disregard time. Disregard time. Go out into nature, because when you were a kid, if you were allowed to or you were comfortable with, you could make worlds out of sticks and bark and rocks. And you could talk to trees and they would talk back to you. Go into play if you can go into play. And if you can't go into play, be around someone who can. Animals play. Animals play. Going to the park and even looking at squirrels, they're always playing with each other. If you have a child in your life, engage in play. Ask them about what they see and what they think and what worlds they live in, and take them to the outdoors and watch them engage in nature so you can engage with them. That is the closest way to your own spiritual elevation, is through childlike wonder and play. So how can you engage in play in your life? And even if you have to, and a lot of people, they have sadness related to their childhood, so they try not to look into these things in terms of like their favorite childhood book or song or movie or whatever. But honestly, I had a sickness kick me on my butt about a month ago, and I was like, what is the best thing for me? And it was still not too cold outside. And my intuition was like, just lay under a tree and look at the clouds. So I took this rug that was in my closet. It'd probably be like a prayer rug that someone would use for like call to prayer or something. Maybe, I don't know. I haven't seen those rugs, so I don't know. I don't want to assume, but it was like thick, sturdy. Put it under my tree in the backyard, and I spent every day that week, at least 45 minutes, just laying. I didn't even try to meditate. I felt so ill. I just laid under and I just looked at the clouds, seeing shapes out of them. Did you used to do that when you were little? Like try to find shapes in clouds, and sometimes the sky isn't clear enough to discern that's a cloud and it's shaped like a blah 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 because there's so many chemtrails or whatever. But I had the pleasure of seeing some clouds during this time, and then just like looking at the light flickering through the leaves in the trees before they all fell on my face, and my cat actively trying to hunt leaves around and like pouncing on them, and I felt like actual death. And just those things allowed me to be in a state of hum. And then I decided to, because I never watch television anymore, but I don't like any current television or whatever is being made. But what I decided to do was to look at like old stuff that I knew I loved, that I used to enjoy so much. So I watched, yes I did, I am not ashamed, I will say this over and over, I watched You've Got Mail with Meg Ryan and Tom Hanks, because it is some of my favorite cinema, if we can call it that. And it just made me feel light and joyful and took me back to like that era. And that is childlike wonder and play, and that is just as important in your spiritual journey as mastering a moment of silence or Wim Hof breathing or understanding the Buddha. Like, give yourself some of that grace and play. That's some of the best thing you can do for yourself. Be curious. Just be curious. You don't have to be done with this right now. You got time. Just see what comes and see what reveals itself to you. It's so exciting. It's so wonderful. Play. Just play. That is my advice to you today. Just play.